Guys, the prompt is the next thing. If you're not on, get on, okay?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Prompt Zambia. And today I'm here with a special guest, Bishop George Mbulo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Mapalo.
Yes.
It's a
Thank you
joy
for
to be here.
inviting me in your offices today.
Yes.
So, I think first of all, it's better to start with the foundation. So being born in Livingston, how was that experience for you during the colonial times and all?
Right. Well, Mapalo, the life history begins as you said. I was born in Livingston in Libuyu. This is a compound within Livingston.
Yes.
And that was in 1957, which is pre-independence.
Yes, sir.
So it was an experience of growing up in colonial days. And one thing that has indelibly been imprinted in my mind is going with my dad into town.
Yes.
And that time, the Zambian blacks could not easily walk around.
Yes, sir.
So being in town, we could not even enter a store. My dad had to go into through a pigeonhole, a little hole in which he was playing. But to me, as a little boy, I was curious. No, I was just curious. I said, "Whoa, I see other white people with their children going in. Why are we not going in?" And Dad used the excuse and said, "No, we are in a hurry."
Okay.
But you see, that didn't really click with my mind. He said, "We are always in a hurry. Every time we come to buy, it's buying through a window instead of going in." So that was my initial experience of the disparity.
Yes.
Yeah, in colonial days.
So, was it like that when you moved to Furia, or it was something a little bit different?
No, it changed because by the time we were moving to the Copper Belt, I was actually in second grade. My first grade was pre-independence, starting January of 1964. And then my second grade, we had become independent.
Okay.
So by the time I was moving to the Copper Belt in 65, the things had begun to change because the president now, Kaunda, had begun to institute, that positive atmosphere for Zambians.
Yes, definitely. And growing up in Mvulira, what were some of the things that stood out to you? I think you lived most of your life there.
Yes. The thing was, the Copper Belt was a hub of industry.
Okay.
As far as Zambia was concerned. If you talked about the economy, the economy of Zambia was actually based on the Copper Belt, as it still is.
Yes.
It is more mineral based. So growing up there was always aspiring to be part of the industry.
Yes, sir.
And going through primary school there and then high school, we were actually being recruited while in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was aspiring to be an engineer. And for sure, I became an electrical engineer for the copper mine in the 70s.
So, before we go to your calling, being a pastor, I want to talk about, let's say, how did you find, Mrs. Mbulo? Because I feel like she's very integrated in your life.
She is.
Very rare to find these days because you always find somebody talking about themselves all the time.
Yeah.
But you work as a unit.
Exactly. Because our relationship, let me put it that way, began while we were in high school.
Okay.
We went to the same high school.
Okay.
Mfulira High School.
Yes, sir.
Which was turned into Mfulira Secondary School.
Yes, sir.
And so, having been together in the same high school, and then we became friends, high school friends and sweetheart. So we pretty much began our life as teenagers. And by the time we were leaving high school and getting into industry, and I was training as an electrical engineer for under the copper mine in Muflira, I want you to know that we immediately decided we were actually going to be husband and wife.
Yes, sir.
So while I was training, we were actually married. Okay. So you can imagine we were married young. But we started our relationship in high school, ended up, and of course, having been a student leader myself, it meant that I was also quite available in interacting with students.
Yes, sir.
But she's one that, I felt that we had been in love together and we could actually live together. And for sure, we are talking now, and this is going to be 48 years.
Congratulations to that.
Thank you.
What do you think made it possible for you
You know, the first thing was that from the very inception, even as young as we were,
Yes.
we had actually determined that the two of us really loved each other, not because of what we had, but because of just our love for each other.
Yes.
So things were not the things that determined our relationship. It was really love for each other, whether in hardship or in the easy times and times of plenty.
Yes.
It is not the material things that determine our relationship. For us, for all these 48 years, we have had our ups and downs in terms of, you know, you have a lot, you have nothing.
Yes.
We've been students, we've been, you know, doing our graduate studies,
Yes,
and, you know, it meant that you become a student. Then
Yes.
you are not earning money.
But
you see, that doesn't change our relationship.
Yes.
It never changed it. For both my wife and I, she has a master's degree, I have a PhD. But you can imagine that all that was happening while we were still married.
Yes, sir.
So to us, it's a relationship that was deeper than just the material things.
Okay.
Most people, you know, if they base their relationship on what they have and what they're building together in terms of houses, and that's why things become shaky. If you lose those things, your relationship also
It's nothing. Yes.
sinks with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, talking about ups and downs, you talked about, you know, tell me about the day when you decided that, okay, you know, let's go into ministry and praising God and stuff. Was it you who felt that calling, or it was your wife, or you just came together?
Okay, what happened was, you know, very early in our marriage,
Yes.
we both gave our lives to the Lord.
Yes.
We were invited by friends to church. You know, my wife used to be very religious. She was part of the United Church of Zambia. In fact, she began as a Roman Catholic, United Church of Zambia. For me, my journey was, I started with parents who were in the Shina movement. I came ahead of it. You know, so it was sort of a religious involvement. But when we got married, a friend of ours invites us to church. And it was an Pentecostal Assemblies of God church, Eastleigh Assembly in Mufulira.
Yes, sir.
When we went there, both of us, in a space of a week, I was the first one who went at the invitation, gave my life to Jesus.
Yes, sir.
I went to my wife and I said, well, you need to come with me to church and see what has happened.
Yes.
Because she could see the immediate transformation. She followed the following Sunday. She gave her life to the Lord. So within a space of a week, we both gave our lives to the Lord. Now, what followed after that was, you know, contemplating now on what is my life's purpose? What's our life's purpose? Of course, as young, ambitious people, you know, because that time, I want you to know that Zambia was not the way it is today.
Yes.
Employment was actually available, so much that it wasn't you looking for it, it was employment looking for you.
Okay, yes.
So we had all these opportunities
Yes.
of excelling. And I want you to know, when I became an electrician for the copper mine,
Yes.
the sky was the limit, so to speak.
Yes.
You know, I could aspire to be whatever I wanted to be. But then it was in the midst of all that, that with our commitment to the Lord, and then we were busy involved in the life of the church, we began to feel this nudging within our spirit, you know, to say, man, maybe we could serve the Lord, you know, as ministers of the gospel.
Yes.
But you know, it wasn't easy because we're in the 20s.
Yeah.
You know, in our 20s, to think about gospel ministry in 1977 was like unheard of, because most pastors were really old people, retired.
Yes.
You know, but for us, we were still young and aspiring to be whatever, artisans, you know. But then it was in the midst of that. I cannot go into a lot of detail because it will take forever.
Yes, yes.
It was that nudging within the spirit that began with me first. Because I was in a Christian camp.
Okay.
My wife were expecting our son, you know, and she couldn't be in camp as a resident.
Okay.
So she was coming from home to come in the evening.
Yes.
I was resident in the camp, Christian camp. And it was there where I began to feel this nudging. And I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, if you want me to serve you, I'm available. I'll serve you, but I need to talk to my wife.
Yes.
Then when I talked to my wife, she said, no, he hasn't spoken to me. God hasn't talked to me.
Yes.
So I said, no, I'm not really saying God has spoken to both of us. I'm just saying what is happening with me.
Yes.
It took about a month. I wasn't even asking her. To me, it was like, okay, I had resolved that I would serve the Lord.
Yes.
But surely the Lord knows I'm married. He will have to speak to her.
Yes.
She has her own story. If you were to interview her, she will tell you what she went through
Okay.
for a space of a month. When she came back to me and she said, you know what, honey, let's do this.
Yes.
I feel a release in my heart that we should serve the Lord.
Yes.
Now, to announce to our family, our parents, oh my goodness, it was just so nightmarish, if I may put it that way. Because you're thinking, man, they educated you, you started a career, and then all of a sudden you abandoned the career.
Yeah.
You have to quit this.
Yes.
My goodness. And you know, for our friends, when we told them, they thought we were wasting away our life.
Yes.
You know, how could you so young, go into ministry? Why don't you wait until you are old? And we said, but we feel the nudge of the Spirit of God.
This is
this is it. We are stepping out. So that's why even they considered us in Pentecostal Assemblies of God as pioneers. Not that we were the first, but we were really the first of the young crop of ministers, educated and able to, go out there and speak to people who are in careers, who are in the colleges and all that. We were the first group, of Pentecostals that could actually do that in terms of just preaching. You go to a secondary school, teachers training college, you preach. You go to a primary school, teachers training college, you preach. You go to the nursery school, you can. In other words, we were the first, if I may put it that way. Not that we were better than everybody else, but we were among the first Pentecostal preachers in Zambia that would actually go into a lot of places and hold crusades and things like. Before even my good friend Dr. Mumba started crusades, we were starting crusades.
Yes.
And we the privilege that my wife and I had was that even while we were in Bible college, people like Dr. Nevis Mumba, he was part of our church where we were interning as pastors. So he was just a member. Dan Pule, Dr. Dan Pule was my first elder in church that we started in Chingola. So really, it's both of us who made a decision, but it was spaced over a month. I made a decision, but I didn't want to force it on her until the Lord would speak to her. So the Lord spoke to her.
Yes. And what I want to touch on is what was some of your biggest challenges in that journey? Because I remember you talking about buying things in advance for a month, and and also knocking on doors. So what carried you forward in terms of moments where others would quit?
First of all, even as we made the decision, I had to submit my resignation from the copper mine. As an electrical engineer. In submitting my resignation, believe it or not, the same day that I had my letter of resignation is the same day that I was being promoted.
Oh my God.
And the promotion coincided with me resigning. And my engineering superintendent couldn't believe it. That as a young person, I'm actually going to say no to a promotion just because I want to go and preach the gospel. But it was so strong and deeply rooted in our heart that we had made a decision to do that. And by God's grace, I want you to know at that time they thought we were wasting away. Fast forward, 4 decades plus later, 44 years in ministry. Can someone tell us that we have wasted away?
No.
We have had a fulfilling life. We have had successful ministry, not only in Zambia, but in the United States. And so basically the thing is that we made a decision at the time that was difficult because first of all, when we got our severance package, which was quite hefty at that time, in the time, we bought all that we thought we needed for 2 years that would be in Bible college. And for sure, we had a baby, a new baby that I said my wife was expecting when I was in camp.
His son.
Our son, who is now 45 years old, by the way. And he stays in the United States, married, and we have a granddaughter. And now, the thing is, at that time, thieves broke into our home and they stole things from our home before we went into Bible school. Now, if there was going to be any discouragement, that should have been discouraging.
Definitely.
That was so bad that my wife and I went into Bible school. Whatever slacks I had when I went to work before I finally stopped, and the shoes I had, that is all I had to go with in Bible school. Whatever my wife had when she went to the store, when they broke into the house, that is all we had. And we still went. And of course, the 2 years of Bible school were not easy. They were so difficult because we exhausted our money buying things. Now we didn't even have enough to pay tuition because we were replacing some few things. Then also, while in Bible school, there was no salary.
Yes.
So you are married with a child, and you have no salary, and you just have
all
to.
these responsibilities.
Of course.
Yes.
But you see, the thing was because both of us had agreed and decided we were going to serve the Lord.
Yes.
It meant that neither one of us could blame the other.
Yes.
So we stood together in prayer.
Yes.
And the 2 years were not easy, like I said. You know, we had no real steady flow of income.
Yes.
We just were there, students. Tough times. And we were, like, during the holidays, we didn't even know where to go because our parents at that time were so annoyed with us that they could not receive us back for holidays. So we would go to other people, you know, would open a room for us to stay. So for 2 years, we were actually like vagabonds, you know, just wandering around. But we knew for sure that the Lord had called us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you know, CCMI, Character Christian Impact.
Yeah.
How did it come about? Like, was it
Yeah.
in school or was it years later?
Oh, many years later, because in between, you know, after we left Bible school, we started a church in Chingola called Evangel, Pentecostal Assemblies of God. It's there today.
Okay.
And many other people have come out of that church, you know, to become pastors and bishops and all that. But it was after serving there from 79 through 82 that we left for the United States to further our studies. The Lord opened the door for us. We went into Seattle, Washington, and got our bachelor's degree. Came back, and we were even principal of Bible College, Pentecostal Assemblies of God. First Zambia, by the way, because it was run by Canadians. So we were the first Zambians to be principal of that Bible school. It was after we served there for 3 years, when we left to go to the United States again for our postgraduate studies, which is graduate studies according to Americans, the master's degree. It was when we went back to Los Angeles, and we were in Pasadena at Fuller Theological Seminary. 4 years of Master of Divinity. And my wife was started pursuing also her teacher's education, early childhood education degree. What happened now was after the 3 years of being in master's degree, a church opened for us in the 4th year. North Hollywood First Assembly of God Church. So we were on the pastoral staff of North Hollywood First Assembly while still finishing up my Master of Divinity. Now, as things would be, became executive pastor of that church, you know, after several years. And we were established there now. We became even permanent residents of the United States, you know, green card. You know, we got all that. I even went and did my Master of Business Administration, MBA, at Pepperdine University. And then went back and started doing my doctorate again. Now, while we are doing all that, and we bought a house in Santa Clarita, our boys were just enjoying the American life, you know, and we ourselves were quite content that we had settled. Believe it or not, 10 years went by living in Los Angeles without visiting Zambia.
And how was that? Was that like by choice or just,
it was activity. You know, you are just doing things, you know, and you are busy with ministry because we were in ministry for 11 years. Before we even came back now to Zambia in 2001. Now, 14 years to taught in Los Angeles, but after 10 years, we decided to visit Zambia. When we visited Zambia, that's when the Lord started speaking to us about Capital Christian Ministries International, which is known as Capital Impact. It was that time that God began to speak to us about returning home. Returning home while we are settled in the United States. We have a home, beautiful home in Santa Clarita, and our boys are going to school, and we are settled. We are nicely taken care of by the church, you know, and in fact, even almost at the verge of becoming a professor at a Bible college, at a university there. That's when the decision was to be made. We felt the nudge again. The same nudge we felt when we were in the mines. The nudge came again. to return back to Zambia.
Yes.
And launch a ministry.
Yes.
To target the capital cities of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself was a journey that they couldn't understand. First of all, our own family again couldn't understand. The church we were at could not understand.
Yes.
And then, of course, we as a family now with 3 boys, we had to sit down and discuss this.
Yes.
You know, and of course the 2 bigger boys who had left high school and now were in college and all that, we decided they can stay.
Yeah.
But we brought back our son, who was a teenager, Keith.
Yes.
And that's how Keith came back with us here. But then, of course, he's been back in the United States for the past 9 years and 10 now, you know.
Yes. So how did you find like different pastors to come in like and support your vision? Okay. So you said the mission is going to all the other
capital cities of Africa.
Is there any other mission that you have like when they look at CCMR?
Yeah. You know, when we say targeting the capital cities of Africa, that's another story, which is a long one, for us to come to that conclusion.
Yes.
But within that, as the vision statement says, you know, a local church-based, multifaceted Christian ministry in every capital city. That multifacetedness. We also even launched what we call LifeNet Children's Rescue Mission.
Yes.
From 2001. You know, now it's 21 years.
Yes.
And we have been running LifeNet. And you yourself, Paulo, you know some of the boys that we had at LifeNet who are now graduated.
Yes.
They are, you know, business people. Some of them are, you know, doing very well. We had to also address some social issues. And we're still building LifeNet today, a facility where we can take in 40 children and help them, you know, be educated and have life's purpose. And so, targeting the capital cities is for us to be able to plant churches where servants of God who are truly called to partner with others in ministry, preaching Jesus, can come alongside of us. And of course, when we started small. You know, we started in a sitting room in Jesbondi, Lusaka. We had the first congregation of 12 people. And most of them were from the University of Zambia because that's where we were targeting.
Yes.
And today, all those who were at the University of Zambia were part of our congregation are now executives in companies. Yes. You know, and so basically the church started there. We came at Mulungushi. And as you know, we stayed at Mulungushi for 19 years.
Yes.
Not because we had all the money we needed, but we stayed because God wanted us to stay. In our own understanding, we were to build a ministry. And that's how slowly the Lord begins to talk to other individuals to join the vision and join the ministry. And that's why we have a staff now of other servants of God and their spouses and families who are serving the Lord.
One thing that really fascinates me and also that has also made me want to stay at Capital is your preaching style. You don't find preaching styles like yours these days, most especially, because it's mostly, give money, then you'll be blessed, that kind of thing, or it's like, no, you're a sinner, every time you have to repent or something, but your style is very unique. What was your mindset going towards that?
You know, the thing is that we were mentored and groomed by Dr. Winston Brooms. Dr. Winston Brooms is originally from West Indies, but now he's based in Atlantic City in the United States. He's in his retirement age now, in the 70s. You know, that man instilled in us a passion for people. You know, in other words, God reached out to us not because we were deserving. God sent his son Jesus, not because we were deserving, but because that was a way in which he would bring us into relationship with himself. He loved us in spite of all the quacks and other things. He forgave us when we confessed our sins. So the message that we preach is not a message that compromises sin, but it's a message that says, listen, it doesn't matter what state you are in. God loves you and he wants to save you from it. So it's not a condemning message. It is rather an empowering message that says, run to Jesus for salvation. For God so loved the world. You see, that is what motivates the heart of God to reach out to us, is love. Also, we should have the same love for other people who need Jesus. And so when we preach the gospel, to us, we preach the gospel to lead people to Christ. And this thing of, give and you'll be blessed and all that, there is giving in church. That is biblical, that is healthy, and people support the ministry. Capital Impact is supported.
Yes.
But you see, we don't put that as a primary thing that we preach.
Yes.
We preach the word. We preach the word to strengthen and disciple people.
Yes.
Yes.
You know how I look at it? I think it's like more objective in terms of saying this is how it is, and it's up to you to decide whether,
exactly.
Which is how also God created Christianity. Because if he wanted, he would have made half of us Christians and stuff like that. But there's always a choice.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about when it comes to you, how do you want people to look at you or remember you in terms of when I say that I'm going to the new bishop, everyone was like, no, you have to do this, you have to do that, and all that.
Yeah.
You are always on, making sure someone does things right.
Yeah.
And why did you become like that? Oh.
When you serve the Lord, just as determined and as focused as I was when I was doing electrical engineering, the excellency of what I was putting into industry, God does not deserve anything less. He in fact deserves more.
Yes.
Therefore, in coming into doing ministry, if I have to be remembered for anything, is represent God well.
Yes.
Represent him well. We are not saying present yourself, but to represent God well. So that in representing God well, this is what you're doing. You are preaching the gospel with integrity.
Yes.
Because why? When they see me or they see us, they should see what it is to be a servant or a son or daughter of God.
Yes.
They should be able to, even just looking at our life, they should be able to say, I admire this, I want to be this.
Yes. Yes.
You see, so if we have to be remembered for anything, is that we have pointed people to Jesus as well as we exemplify or display what it is to live the life of Christ.
Yes.
Because first of all, as you have heard me say, Mapalo, time and time again, I've said I'm a Christian first before I'm a preacher.
Yes.
So meaning I have to live my Christian life.
Definitely.
And then I'm also a preacher of the gospel.
Yes.
So it's that life which should be remembered to say, yes, Bishop George Mbulo, he lived for Christ.
Yes.
He preached the gospel with a passion for the souls.
Yes. We're almost towards the end.
Yes.
One thing that really fascinated me about you is how you, when somebody comes to work under you for some time and for some years, when they say they want to choose another path, you let them go.
Yeah.
How important is that for you to let someone go? Because there are a lot of people who are like, okay, this person adds so much value to my company, so I'll not let them go or bless them.
Okay. The thing is this, when you realize, and that's a realization that I have, for me to be where I am today, to be and do what I do today, I have had to go through transitions.
Yes.
As I began the story, we began the story where I was in the mines. I was an electrical engineer. I transitioned to go into what? Preaching the gospel.
Yes.
To be trained as a minister of the gospel. Now, we also started a church, which we had to transition out of to go to the United States for further study. We started there, we came back, and we were leading a Bible college. That was a transition. In other words, I always say to people that say, God is nudging me to do something different from just being in capital. And I tell them and I say, if it's God who is leading you to do that, it must be a positive move. Don't move just because you are frustrated. Don't move because you're just looking for more money, because those things actually dry up. Move because God has told you to move, and you feel the nudge of the Spirit to do that. And therefore, I say, I'm not God to stop you.
Yes.
I'm just a human being that God has entrusted with leadership in church. Therefore, what I do is this. I want to mentor you to the point where I make sure that at least God has spoken to you. If you tell me God has spoken, who am I to deny it?
Yes.
Because the Lord doesn't have to get permission from me to talk to you. You know, He talks to you and He tells me just like He talked to me and I told them, God has spoken. Even when they opposed, even when my parents opposed and her parents opposed, God has spoken to us. Who were they to deny us the fact that God has spoken? So it's the same way, we treat it that way. However, unfortunately, some people make a decision and they make a rash decision because they are attracted by other things, and then they find out where they've gone, it doesn't work out the way they thought it would. In fact, they were better off actually being part of the team here. And then what we do at Capital is we empower everybody to do ministry. You will never find us stifling anyone, stopping anyone from doing. We empower them to do ministry. And that's why, Mapalo, my wife and I have our second home in the United States. We can live for months and come back and find this church is still healthy and still growing, and you are still happy in church. So because of that attitude towards what God does with people, is that we don't own them. We are stewards. We are actually managing God's assets. Therefore, if the Lord says release that asset to another task, who am I to say I'll hold on to it?
So, as a president and the CEO, what are like your roles, like in terms of just not being a pastor and stuff, but you know, in terms of like we see you on TV and all that, and I'm sure there's a lot of business that goes in that.
Yes, actually, Mapalo, you've just touched on something that I will quickly just refer to. The reason I have a Master of Divinity in theology, I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy. All those things were suitable and good for me to be a leader of a church. And I qualified, ordained minister. But I still felt we needed to do better. Because why? The church has the organizational part of it. And also it has the, what we call the organism part of it, which is life in Christ, life in the Spirit. But it's also an organization because you're dealing with people. You're dealing with an organization. So we run administratively management of an organization, just as you would run any other organization. And you should even do better because now it is even hinged on how faithful you are to doing what you're doing. So I have management responsibility. That's why I did my MBA in management. And that's why I've done my PhD in leadership and management. So all these things, they come together so that we can run our management office of the ministry well. And there are daily responsibilities of organization that go into it. And that's how when you come to a church service, you see a church service going, that is simply now the display of what was going on behind the scenes, preparing for it. And you see all these different ministries running. And then when we say we are also running other ministries in other capital cities, all those are organizational things. We have our team in the United States, which has an office there. It means that we are running a corporation, a multinational corporation. But it is actually gospel. Amen.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that you want to say or point out?
Thank you, Mapalo. I'm so blessed that as someone that we have seen, you know, in this church from when you were young, and now you're doing what you're doing. It fills our heart with joy to know that we've been privileged to lead a congregation and a ministry where young people are growing up and they're taking charge of things. But the important thing to know is that Jesus is the foundation. Is the rock that we need to have. We should excel as much as we can, but never forget that our life here on earth is limited. And when we are gone from here, what is eternity for us? So basically what I say is I encourage as many of you as I've seen, and we rejoice over your successes. And you just got your bachelor's degree. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much.
And you know, those are the things we're talking about. God put us here on earth for a purpose. Let's fulfill our purpose. You are fulfilling your purpose. I'm fulfilling my purpose. Somebody. But let's encourage one another. And under the ministry, that is what we do. We celebrate victories. We celebrate successes. And it's because God intended them for us. And so I would encourage whoever is listening to us and watching us that actually they should excel in what God has purposed for them in this life. life. Thank you so much for the time.